Start recording. Bibbidi boo. Cool. I don't know if everyone saw, but in the general chat and some fucking, I think it was in the general chat here, I asked about what we want to do for the holidays. So I'm willing to be flexible with everyone. I'll be around whenever. I'm just chilling. Taking a week off work or so, but I'll still be around. So I'm thinking lecture today, homework, Wednesday lecture, homework due Friday, off for the weekend and Monday, and then back Tuesday or Wednesday or something. And then for people who are just going to be around and aren't doing much around Christmas and want to keep going, I can give some extra homework, basically. Just like bonus homework to stay fresh if they want. Anyone not able to make most of that, or like it's they want longer off or anything? No, everyone's laughing. Well, comment in the channel if I sound like a YouTube guy. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Yeah, if you have any other opinions on what we should do over the holidays, then I'm happy to acquiesce or whatever. But obviously, I can keep mentoring anyone who wants to do it through there. So I also noticed that a lot of people are behind. When I asked at the start of the last lecture, hey, how's the previous homework, yada, yada, no one said anything. But it turns out I'd say 80% of people had not finished it. So if no one's going to be vocal on not finishing the homework and needing more time, it's going to be very impossible for me to try and make the proper schedule for this. So please, even if you're not comfortable speaking out, just DM me or something to let me know, hey, I didn't finish the homework or something, so I can keep because it's too hard to keep track of everyone. I can't review everyone's code. Obviously we need to slow down just a little bit is what I'm seeing. I think people had easier time with the exercises, little bite-sized things, than they did with plugging them all together in the game, which makes sense. That is combining a lot of different things. The game added Git, it added NPM, and it added pretty much everything you've done programming-wise all together in one block, and it seems a lot of people copy-pasted or wrote other people's solutions, and then when it didn't work or they couldn't change it, they were confused, which is fine. It's all writing code and stuff. But I think that 2 days was not enough for that, and nobody really voiced that. So I just moved on to the exercises, and the people who got the previous stuff did the exercises, but a lot of people have not done the latest exercises yet, or they're just starting it. I've seen a lot of people still working on the game today. So it's not, there's no shame in being behind. I think most people are behind, which means I'm moving too fast, but giving everyone spare time and stuff. But if nobody communicates that, I have no way to know. And then we're just going to have people who have way more free time spending more time on this ahead, and everyone else will be behind, when really it should just be everyone is at the same level. And then the people who have more free time can get to do bonus homework and stuff. But no one should be behind on the regular homework. If over 50% of the class is behind on the regular homework, I am going too fast. So please communicate that to me in the future if needed, if you're not done homework and stuff. Just so we can make this paced properly. So let me clear this shit from my work today. And I'll go to my code directory, then into test 2. Or no, actually, I'm going to go to exercises. So I'll quickly go over what the exercises were for people who've done it. It'll be a little review. And for people who haven't done it, you'll just kind of see what's happening here. I asked people to do something with a prompt library, something with a min and a max number, and a for loop. Some stuff with classes and stuff like very similar to the game, mocking out Steam users, and then monitoring Ethereum activity in real time, which is kind of one of the first real world things we've done, and involve looking up library usage yourself. I think most people have not started this, so I'm not going to go over these today. I was going to solve them in front of you, and I was going to solve the basic exercises as well that I also gave for people who are behind a little bit. But I'm not going to solve those either, just give people more time. I'm going to add more homework today, but I'm going to let people catch up and do these exercises before I solve it in front of them, because then I feel like a lot of people, when they see the solution, they will just write what I'm saying. So my goal is to be writing less stuff in front of you and more giving you the tools to solve it and figure it out yourself and amongst each other. So I will come back and solve all of these exercises later. I don't know if anyone else saw, but there's a basic exercises Git repo as well. I can't even remember what the hell I called that repo. Beginner exercises. I can't remember what the hell it is.
It was basic.
Basic exercise. It's somewhere then. I don't know where the hell I put it. But these are all my different code repos I work with, which is Panda. What's Panda chain? Ooh la la. Eh? Who knows? Who fucking knows?
Yeah, it's basic.
I'm calling up
basic
Dipley.
/ exercises.
Yeah, what is Panda chain? I have no idea. Let's go in here. Panda chain, hey? Oh, yeah, this is the first implementation of Pandemonium. That's what this shit
I
is.
thought it was the thing.
I like how quickly you could just decipher what it was.
Well, you're selecting words and, codes and stuff, leaderboards, choices. Yeah, eventually we'll go over some of that code actually, because it's some of the code in general. So other exercises. So all we're getting for homework now is more and more iterations on these until our next project, which is a Discord bot. To give you guys a little advanced thing, we're going to do another round of exercises, and on Wednesday the homework is going to be a Discord bot. So I'm going to make a bunch. I don't want anyone to fall behind. So the goal is by Wednesday, you don't have to do all the exercises, but obviously the more time you spend will be better. As many exercises you can complete between the 2 repos I've already shared and then the one I'm going to share today. Is kind of the goal. Have the game as done as you feel done with it. You've experimented a little bit. Do as many exercises as you can. And then Wednesday, we are going to start a Discord bot, which will utilize a bunch of stuff we've done already. We're missing a couple small things, I think. So I'm going to make, what day is it, 11? I'm going to take all day 11 exercises. Who cares? Make a new repo. Start off with a README like I always do, readme.md. I'll also start off with git init and npm init.
Or see it's day 10.
Whatever.
Okay.
We're at a day 11 now. That's how time moves fast in the DCC. It's crazy. It's just crazy. Day 11. So yeah, I'm starting off with git init, npm init, and a readme. That's how I'm going to start off all my repositories. Try and get in the habit of that as well. You're really starting off. You're setting yourself up for success having a Git repository set up, a package.json created for your JavaScript dependencies, and a README that you can use. That's just a good way for me to get started. That way, whenever I need to run an npm command or git command, I'm ready in there, which I think is helpful. What's that?
I think what gives me some issues too is just kind of learning the processes. I know it's like repetition, but even just like as you stated, uploading it to the Git, doing the npm install and doing all that, the process of it is kind of what throws me off sometimes, because like I feel like I either miss something and then it throws me off for a loop when I start writing code, and then like I'm back trying to troubleshoot some simple little things, and I don't know if anyone else has that issue too, but I find myself kind of doing that.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's that's one of the things about Git and npm and these other command line tools is they're designed to help, and they mostly get in your way.
Yeah,
and that's true of all times. Like you'll find this in your job working. Git does a lot more than we've been able to do with it so far, like a lot more. And you get into more crazy commands. I have quite literally spent entire days fighting Git to get what I want. It's not uncommon. I do recommend the repetition really is key, and there's going to be there's going to be no way to get past your barrier without the repetition. That's just
for sure
the nature of it. But if you're finding yourselves, stuck on that stuff, what you can do is create like 10 repos in a row, like just empty repos with garbage in them, but like create one on GitHub, then do the init, the add, the commit, the push, change a file, push it up, rinse and repeat that a couple times so you feel like you kind of understand which part is setting up the Git repo, which part is actually pushing new code to the Git repo, and you don't need to run the init stuff anymore. Like, There's really no other way you're going to do it other than kind of grokking it mentally by doing the same way that, you're beginning to understand code more by writing it. You have to use the tools more as well.
I think when Neil said earlier, when he was like, if we have I forget exactly what it was, but like the terminology, vocabulary, whatever, if you just kind of jot down, like, in order to push the code to Git, this is what you need to do, like do your npm, do the git.add, blah blah blah. Just having it like laid out would be nice, and then of course the repetition comes into play.
Yeah, some sort of glossary, I think, is what Neil wanted me to make, which I think makes sense.
Yeah, we kind of went over it, but we definitely didn't compile it well.
Yeah, I saw something that the AI made. That's just not how it's going to work. I can definitely sum up everything we've done and put it in like a channel. Definitely.
Yeah, just the process is really, like I said, because it's I want to familiarize myself with what they actually do, but just got to know the process and to what to do, so that way you don't overstep one, or you don't miss one, basically.
And not just that, but also having it from you and the way that you describe it alongside the lecture makes more sense than getting a generic one from somebody or the AI.
Like Googling some other issues and all that good stuff.
Yeah, but I will say that learning how to Google is probably the main skill to learn here. Slightly above programming. I'm not, even if I do make a glossary or whatever, I'm not going to make it too in depth, because the goal would be still to have you guys being stuck and figuring it out. That really is the goal. I could very easily just document absolutely everything the whole way, but you'd only ever get used to checking that channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can definitely sum up everything we've learned somewhere, but I'm going to try to avoid step-by-step stuff.
Just the gist of it, pretty much. That's all. Like, I just want to know the process to it, and I'll definitely look into it myself more. But I find, like, when I'm Googling something to troubleshoot, just throws this jargon at me that goes over my head.
Sure, I can. I'll do that after the lecture tonight and sort of compile where we are now, and I can keep it updated as well as we add new stuff. Cool. So we're kind of we're at a point now where I think we've learned a bunch of stuff. We've reiterated on that stuff. We're going to learn some more exercises, do a Discord bot, and then leave JavaScript for a little bit after that to learn HTML, and then start making web apps, plugging HTML and JavaScript together. So there's a couple things we need to know about JavaScript at the end here and get comfortable with, that we've kind of done a little bit but not really delved into, and some people have done more than others. And it's kind of stems back to some, like, I don't really talk a lot of theory when I teach and when I work either, but I do want to talk some theory first before we get into what we're doing today, because when we go to make web apps and we go to make the Discord bot, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes into how these work, and you just write a couple lines of code and it works. But I want to talk about asynchronous programming. Asynchronous programming is, I know we have some people that aren't English language first speakers here. So like synchronous is things happen in a row. Like if I have a file here, right, called like sync.js, and I say like const my variable is equal to hello, console.log my variable. Like when I run this, it runs synchronously. It runs line 1, and then it runs line 2. And if I do node sync.js, it runs hello, which is to be expected. But the reason JavaScript is used, the reason why it's such a powerful language, and even though it's got a lot of ways to shoot yourself in the foot, is because it's a powerful asynchronous programming language. And we've actually kind of used that already with the prompts in the game. But what we've done is I've skipped ahead, and I taught you the modern, really, really simple way to do asynchronous programming. So what we did is I had npm install prompt promise --save. I'll install the prompt library to kind of show you that, and I'll say async function do prompt. At the top, we go up and require that, right? Const prompt is equal to require prompt promise. This is nothing we haven't done before. Require the prompt promise library, and I say const, greeting is equal to await prompt, give a greeting, and console.log the greeting. Now if I run do prompt, I should have a very, very simple prompt. Oops, I ran the wrong thing. There we go. Hello, give a greeting, and I say hi, and it logs out hi at the bottom. Give a greeting, hi, hi. Put a new line there to make it a little bit easier to read. So my thing wants me to give a greeting, and I say, this is my greeting, and it logs it out when I say it. We've actually done asynchronous programming now. I hope you guys can see maybe what's happening here, where I run node sync.js, and nothing runs until I actually give the prompt. Like, the code is, my page is stopped. We were done at line 7. I declared this stuff. We ran this stuff up here. Declared the function here. And I call it here. But we're never getting to line 8 in the function. We're just hung on 7. We're hung here forever, actually. It will hang until the end of time. This is asynchronous. But what we're done is called, we used async and await. The await keyword, which we used a bunch already, says wait for this. Wait until this function gives me a response. And in the magic of this function is something that is not returning you until you type in the command line. So it still runs what we call synchronously from top to bottom because of this cool async and await. But async and await was just added to JavaScript really recently, like probably 4 years ago or something. Because it's a clean way to do this kind of thing. You can say something's asynchronous, but treat it synchronously, right? That's why you have to say this function is an async function. If you don't do that, you get the red await here. And you say, oops, await expressions are only allowed with async functions. Did you mean to mark this function as async? If I undo it, I can use it again. These are a pair. They come together. Async and await. You need async. You need to say that your function is async so you can await things inside of it. An async function says, we're going to run this top to bottom still. Now, what does the old version look like? No, sorry, I shouldn't say old version. What does the other way to do this look like? So we'll call this async function.js. So there's going to be nothing new here in terms of in terms of actual programming, but it is in terms of concepts. So what if I say I have a function, my variable is a string, and I want to console.log my variable, very similar to our other file. If I run node async function.js. But let's use the prompt library now without async and await. Let's say const prompt is equal to require prompt promise. And this is going to be uglier. And that's why I taught async await further. It's easier to understand. So let's say I want to prompt give an async function greeting. Okay. So let's try running this. I'm just stuck. I'm stuck in a loop. It's not doing anything really. Without async and await, what prompt returns? Because, I can't do this. Without async and await, I have a magic function on my function prompt. It returns a promise. And I talked about promises before. And if we go to sync.js, we see that prompt returns a promise too. It's the same function. But if we're not going to deal with it in async and await, and some of you guys might have seen this when doing the ether stuff, because the documentation, I know Neil did, he messaged me about it, is it has .then. At the end of the promise, you can say, okay, do this, and then do this. And it'll give me and then you pass in a function. This is a function. This is a different syntax for a function. And then I have access to my greeting. We can log it out here. And if I run my function, I want you to take a look at something really quick. I want you to pay attention to this because it's really, 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 really important. And it's kind of the basics of the foundation of stuff. I said, give an async function greeting in my prompt. And then I get my greeting and I want to log it out, which is the same as this, right? Greeting is equal to await prompt. But I have this .then. And when it's done, it'll give it to me in this function as an argument. It's called a callback. It's a way to say, do this function, prompt the thing, and then whenever it's done, I don't care when, do this. But look, when I console.log my variable on line 8, it's already logged out string. I'll make a, this is my variable I declared. I'll put it down here to make it clear. The prompt, I have not given anything to the prompt because I haven't responded to it yet, but it's already gone to line 10 now. It did this, sorry, it did line 1, it required the prompt. It did line 3, my variable is equal to my variable I declared. It says prompt this, and then when it responds, log out the greeting. But then it doesn't wait. That's the difference between async await and .then. It doesn't wait here. It keeps running code. It keeps going down. It's okay, so when this is done, we're going to do this, but what's next? Go to line 8, go to line 9, and then we log out my variable. But now you can see there, I typed hello, and then it logged it out. This hung around and waited. This did not. This is totally asynchronous. This function block here, this little arrow syntax is the same as this, which maybe we'll do that syntax first, but there is a difference between the two. But you can see it runs the same thing. I'm passing in a function as an argument because that's what I'm saying to the .then of the prompt. I'm saying when this is done, when the prompt is done, I want you to run this function. After done. Nobody knows when it's going to be, but when it happens, I'm going to run this code. But then it keeps going until it doesn't wait for that part. This part is waiting, but the rest of the code doesn't. When we go to async and await, it just pauses. It stops the world. You await this. You actually await it. And you can do it in one line. So you can assert it to a variable. I can say const greeting is the result of the function prompt. But in the async function, I can't assign prompt to a variable. I get a callback function to do something asynchronously. And we can define our own async functions that use callbacks or promises. Pretty much what we're going to do is hammer this point home. Some of you guys have already kind of seen this in your previous Googling for the game. You've already done this actually. So if I have my array and I say it's, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Some of you have done stuff like this. Const has 7. Let's say my array dot includes 7. It's going to loop over each time for you. But this just takes a number. And it says, okay, does my array have 7 in it? And this will return true or false. But there are other ways to do it that include using a callback. Because this way just takes 7. I'll keep that there, sorry. We can console.log has 7. And that'll return true. Let me see there, true. But what if we actually want to, say, get the element of 7 out of it? So we can say my array, we can call .find, and find actually takes a callback, a function. So we can say it's a function of the element. It's going to loop over each element in the array, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and call this function on it. It returns the value of the first element in the array that returns true. So we can say if element is equal to 7, return true. Otherwise, return false. Console.log 7. And we got it right here. 7. We got it. So some of you guys have done this, some of you have not, so I'm going to go over it a couple times here. We're passing a callback as a function because we know that this is what a function looks like. It has little brackets here. And normally we pass in like, simple variables as function arguments. But you can pass in functions, and there are some built-in functions that work like that. You can say dot find is one of them. I want to loop through my array, and I want to find the one that matches a condition. So that condition is if element equals 7. The above dot find is exactly equivalent to this, a regular for loop. I is less than my array dot length, I plus plus. We've done these kind of arrays. We're going to loop over it. And then we're going to say constant number is equal to my array I if number is equal to 7. This is the same thing, right? Looping over the array, getting each element in the array, and if it's 7, return true. Otherwise, return false. But this way is a lot cleaner. None of this indexing by stuff, none of this array.length stuff. It just takes your array and has a built-in function called find, and you tell it the function to do on each one. It doesn't know. A find is very generic, right? But you can pass in this as a callback. You can say, every time the loop happens, I want you to run this. And it's the same as this, right? This block here from number to the under the else statement is the same thing. It says, every time I run the for loop, run this code. But this is a lot cleaner and easier. And there's a lot more of these built in on arrays as well. And they kind of built in do stuff for you, which is handy. But all that is to say, you can pass in functions as arguments. We can make one ourselves. We'll call it function takes function has argument. And we'll call it fn. That's what we'll call the function. Takes function as an argument, takes a single argument, a function, and then calls it. This is, a function that takes a function as an argument and then calls it, whatever that function is. This function doesn't know. In the same way that other functions don't know what parameters you give them. Like when you call prompt, it doesn't know what the string is going to be. You have to tell it what the string is going to be. And when we've declared other functions, it's the same thing. You have to declare it and then give it a name and pass it in. We're doing the same thing here. We're just going to give the function a name of fn in this function, and then we call it. So now we can say, let's pass in, maybe we call it with 5. Takes function as argument and passes in 5. So now we're passing in 5 to whatever this function is, okay? So when I call it, I can say, okay, it takes function as argument and passes in 5. So let's pass in a callback and takes a number because, we're going to pass in a number here. And within it, it just calls console.log on the number. Let's kind of comment this stuff out and just run that bit. This should print 5 because our function takes function as an argument, and whatever function you give it, it just says, I'm going to give it 5. I pass in 5 as an argument to that function. This is basically a wrapper around whatever function you are, and it passes in 5. So the function that we want to pass into it is just a console.log. Hey, it prints 5. Maybe we console.log number plus 5. Now it's 10. We can change whatever this function does, this callback does, without changing the top level function, because this just calls it. It's a very tricky concept to understand, these passing around functions. But functions are what we call first-class citizens. Variables, all of these things, first-class citizens in JavaScript. They can be arguments, just like numbers, strings, objects. We've done this. Classes. So can functions. Functions can be arguments. We can even do this. We can say console.log, going to pass in 5 to my callback. And then say console.log, done calling whatever random function you passed in. I gave it 5. And we can see the order it happens in down here. The first thing it does is log, and then it runs that function, whatever arbitrary function it is. And then it logs out, and then it's done. And this is the syntax that it looks like. We wrote one of these from scratch just now. But if we go up to what we were looking at before, we can see it's the same thing. We have this prompt that's going to wait, but it's not going to block. That's the difference. It's going to wait, but it's not going to block. Async and await blocks. It doesn't run anything below it. The file is paused. It's just done. It's not going to. It's not going to do anything until async and await returns. This callback is a different way of doing it. Anything that can be awaited that returns a promise, we can return .then. And let's write one from scratch so you guys kind of understand it. Callbacks are one way to do asynchronous programming. We can pass in functions as arguments. We can also use promises. It's a promise to do something. That name should make sense. This function, it's not going to do it now, so you can't return something from it. Like, promises promise to do something. They don't do it now. They might, or might later. Or might later. So you cannot store the result of the function in a variable. Like this. Const my result is equal to my promise function. This won't work. You don't get the result in a variable like this when calling a promise. That's why we can't go up here. That's why we can't do prompt thing. Even though we could, if we went to sync.js over here with async and await, you can. You can say const greeting is equal to await prompt. You get it into a variable because it blocks until it returns. Blocking stops execution. Promises under the hood, if you don't await them, do not. They do not. So what if I have a function called do thing, and what does it do? This returns a new promise. This is what it looks like under the hood. You won't have to write these a lot, but I want to show you what it looks like. So it returns a promise, which itself takes a callback that gets handled when it's done. And let's just say we resolve with 5. If I call do thing, actually, let's say, I'll show you how it doesn't work. Const number is equal to do thing, console.log number. Oops, I do not want these to block. We don't need these other logs in here. So we see here, it logs me a promise, not the actual value. What happens if I do this? If I set a timeout. explain that code a bit later, but now it waits 5 seconds. Look, now it says pending. And then exits, but we never see the log. This is a promise to do something, this function. Right here. Do thing is a promise to do something, but we don't know when. We've coded it so that it resolves the promise after 5 seconds with the number 5. Maybe I'll change that to be 150, so it's different. It resolves the promise after 5 seconds. We're doing this asynchronously, but I've already logged the number and we saw it's a log of a promise pending. We run it and it just waits. And then it dies. And then it executes. So how do we actually get the result of do thing when it's ready to be done? We use .then. We pass it the callback that we say, listen, when it's ready, .then says when it's ready, when this promise resolves, do this function, which is very similar to what we did here, where we said, okay, I'm going to pass in a function. I'm going to do some stuff at the top, run whatever function you gave, run some stuff at the bottom. That's what this is doing as well. Is it's saying, do a thing, and whenever you're done, at the very end, it's going to run this function for me. So I can console.log. Got result from my resolved promise, which is result. So this thing's logged above, and we're waiting. Hey, and after 5 seconds, it logged out the bottom. The cool part is if we make this take 1 second, 1 times 1,000, which is 1,000 nanoseconds, or sorry, milliseconds. So it's 1 second here. That's what this says. We're setting a timeout to do something after 1 second. And I get it. So we're doing stuff asynchronously. If I wanted to use do thing, like I did with the prompt library during the game, we can. Async and await, which we already know, are just using promises and .then as well, but they obscure it from the coder. That's the main difference. If I say function main, I can say const result is equal to await do thing. I can console.log result, which is how we kind of know it, and how, obviously a lot simpler code, like super, super simple. If we get rid of those and we run this, oops, and I need to call main. So if we wait at the bottom for 15 seconds, it's now blocking, just like it does for the prompt library, right? The prompt library blocks till you gave it that input. Does the same thing, and boom, logs out 150. This, to me, is a lot easier to reason about. You just say, I want my thing to equal this whenever the hell it's done. Like, await it. Like, just wait for it, man. Like, I need this function to continue my fucking code. I cannot run the rest of my code without this. Is what I like to think of it as. Just wait for this. The .then version is still doing it under the hood. You see, I can hover over it and it says the return type of it is a promise. It's still doing .then. It's obscured from the coder. The coder doesn't have to worry about it. It's very new, like I said before, async await. Almost everyone has moved to async await. But we're still going to learn .then. and we're going to learn promises because they are everywhere, from 15 years of coding and libraries, and async await, because it's so new, is not supported in browsers, for instance. We run this in Node, which is fine, running it in the terminal. But when we go to use a browser, you actually can't use async and await. When we make a web app, you can if you run we will run a compiler on top of it. But natively, if you just write some JavaScript and boot it up in the browser, it doesn't know what to do with async and await. Some browsers do and some don't. It's too new. You have to add support for it. So you can run a compiler that goes through your code after you've written it like this, the clean way, async and await, and it'll turn them into .thens to run into the in the browser. So we're going to learn both, though, because there's lots of code out there that does both. And more importantly, the .then also teaches us callbacks, the function arguments, right? The functions as arguments like this, which is a very, very important part of JavaScript. There's a lot of asynchronous work in JavaScript and in programming in general. Video game programming truly has a lot of asynchronous programming, like a lot. Crypto dev has tons of asynchronous programming. Games will use asynchronous programming, for example, that event loop that we wrote for the game, that while loop, that sucks. That's a terrible way to do it. Just run a loop and check a million things to play our game the entire time. We should really be waiting asynchronously for prompts and then having a callback function that runs whenever a prompt comes in. That's a much better way to do it. All you're doing is waiting for prompts, and when one comes in, and then you do all your game logic. Instead of having everything in a big top-level while loop, which is brittle. Games have a million things like that, right? There's a lot of triggers. When you're playing an RPG and a skill's on cooldown, you have a lot of asynchronous code running, saying when the cooldown is done, like, I might have a function like this, function cooldown running in my game. And it sets a timeout. And it says, and it's 5 times 1,000. The cooldown is 5 seconds. The cooldown for our ability in our game is 5 seconds. So I can say const 5 seconds equal to 5 times 1,000. We represent them as milliseconds. You guys will get used to that shit. So set timeout takes a callback to run after 5 seconds. And I can say let cooldown available is equal to true. Actually, and let's call this usability. So at the start of it, we can say cooldown available is equal to false. We set our cooldown available to false. We just used the ability. It is now on cooldown. Now we can say in the callback here, okay, cooldown available is equal to true. Console.log. Cooldown is ready. Oops. Right? That's a little bit of asynchronous programming. That's something you'd actually see in a game. This more logic, but right? We keep track of the cooldown being available for an ability. Each one has its own cooldown. Maybe there's a global cooldown, whatever logic you implement in the game. You can't just spam abilities. And when you use the ability, trigger it to false. So now you can't call this ability over and over and over and over and over. So we can say if there's no cooldown available, return false. You can't use this ability if the cooldown isn't available. Then we set it to false because we've passed this check. So cooldown is true. You can use it. We set it to false. And then in 5 seconds, which is the cooldown, we set our cooldown back to available after 5 seconds. which, is pretty cool. We can call that. Oh, it's going to wait for our do thing up here. That's a good way to show asynchronous programming again. The cooldown is ready. So let's log up here. Let's say console.log using the cooldown. So run our code. So we can see we go all the way to the bottom here. We're using the cooldown. Now the cooldown's ready. And then this promise that we have from our previous thing resolves because it took 15 seconds. So we're seeing a couple different things fire on the same page now, whereas before we went top to bottom. Now we've set off a bunch of asynchronous programming. I hope you guys can imagine how fucking confusing this can get if you don't manage this stuff properly, because you just don't know what the fuck is happening. Like, you're like, oh my God, this should be ready and that thing's not ready. And you can't just read it top to bottom anymore. You need to know what asynchronous stuff is firing. So that organization of code that I talked about before, having separate folders, separate files, small little files, organized ones, is so important when you get into actually making apps, because most developers suck. And it's because of stuff like this. It's like, we've got callbacks running on timeouts running, and we've got promises being awaited simultaneously, which is not uncommon, but it means, how do you know when something's going to run? It's very tricky. It's probably I would say this is the hardest thing to understand learning programming. And when you guys get this, you'll be able to learn anything. This is what caused me the most headaches for sure. And still does, to be honest. It has a lot of issues. There's a lot of ways to shoot yourself in the foot. I'm not sure the best way to learn it besides doing it a lot. So the exercises are going to have this in it. It's not something you'll understand overnight. It's not something you're going to get good at overnight. But it's very important, this asynchronous programming. Because we do it all the time with a web app as well, right? Like, if I open here, and I go to like what I've been working on for work, which is like my bridge. This is my most recent project that I'm working on for work. It's a bridge for Tycho, right? I've got all this stuff on the page. This is my UI written in HTML. But when I click this button, this connect wallet button, I want to do something, right? I want to connect my wallet. And MetaMask will open. Hey, that's so cool. That was asynchronous right there. I have an asynchronous function handler on that button. And it says, I don't know when you're going to click this, but when you do, run this code. You might never click it. But when you do, run this block of code. There's another part of it as well. There's a promise going on under the hood. If I log in, my code has a promise waiting until I log into MetaMask. It's waiting to resolve. If I pick it, boom, and now you see it gives me a success toast in the top right, and it's changed this to my address. And it changed this to the current chain I'm on. And it changed my balance here too. I have a ton of code on this page, all asynchronous promises. And they're waiting for an event handler. So if I refresh the page to show you guys again how it works in action, is when I click connect wallet, I have a function callback, a function waiting. Not a promise, but a function. That asynchronous function like we did in here. It takes function as argument and I pass a function in and I run the function whenever, or on the timeout, like that kind of thing, the function. But after I click it, I start a new promise and I say, whenever I get a response back from the wallet, you give me a promise to resolve some information I need. I need the balance. I need what current chain they're connected. I need their address, all that kind of stuff. You see, they all updated. If you watch again, watch the balance here in the middle, or the buttons in the top right when I click. Because I click, and you can see them change. The promise is resolved. And now I have the information I need. And I don't know how long it's going to take, so I can't write that synchronous code. I can't have my app just die, like waiting for this to happen. It needs to be asynchronous. So promises. It's going to be the same thing when we write a Discord bot, which is why we're learning this now, right? The Discord bot cannot just block forever. We need to create some event handlers, some asynchronous functions that wait for events to give into the bot, and then the bot can respond to them. But it cannot just wait forever synchronously. It's impossible. They need to just have a little block of code, a little function waiting to run, and it gets notified when it needs to run. And we just say, hey, a bot message comes in, and it goes and spits out the stuff, right? Usually in Discord, you'll do that by putting an exclamation mark in front of the message. And then the bot will, wait for a message to come in. In pseudocode, it'll look like, my function bot. This is our Discord bot. It waits for messages to come in. This is a bot. And we want to pass it a callback to run. We'll call it function. I always call them FN, just a little short. So say it's a function, like to be able to say it's a function. And then we'll say, to mock it out now, we'll just say, we'll do another set timeout. We want to run our function every, actually, instead of set timeout, we'll use set interval. So we can start learning about that. Instead of setting a timeout to run, this will run every 5 seconds now, instead of just once. And we're going to say our const message, got a message. And we can pass that message into the function. And then we can call bot, and we need to pass in a function. We know that. And it takes a message, because this function is going to run whenever we get a message. We can console.log the message. So this function here is fn, and we're going to run it whenever we get a message. So we set an interval. Messages come in every 5 seconds. When they come in, we pass the message to the callback. The function message here is our callback. This is what we want to tell the bot to do when a message comes in. Every bot's going to function the same, but then it's got your little bits of logic, right? Every bot just listens to messages in Discord and does stuff, but how does it know what to do? That little bit of programming logic that you decide for your app is the callback. The rest is the same all the time. Messages come in, something happens. What's that something? You decide. So comment out all that shit. Comments and comments and comments, and let's run it. So we're waiting. Got a message. Got a message. Got a message. Okay, so let's add some functionality to our asynchronous Discord bot. Let's make it only respond to @everyone's, which BN would love. Imagine if you had a bot that just posted his image. So we've got a message here. and we can say it's at everyone. Actually, let's do this. Const messages is equal to hello and at everyone and hi. Got 3 messages. And we can get a random element from our message to print as our message. First, we can get rid of this. And let's go down to our bot and let's say if message dot, I don't know if you guys have done this stuff yet, checking what character exists in a string. So let's see if we don't know how to do that. We want to say right here, if the message that came in has at everyone in it, we want to respond with the fucking guy BN uses, the core room guy. Otherwise, we want to do nothing. This is just a bot to respond to those messages that have at everyone. This is similar to how the bots really work. They usually respond to messages with an exclamation mark and a specific word, like the taco bot. He did flip heads 400. So here we want to say if message starts, message contains at everyone. So how do we do that? Let's go Google. Let's go figure it out. Let's say JavaScript, how to tell if a string contains substring. That could be good. Looks like it has a dot includes method. Let's see. Yes. Dot includes. Okay, so we can use dot includes. So that's kind of how I would do it. I would Google out like in plain English, you know what I mean? I'm like not like trying to be all codey about it. I'm like, how do you do this in JavaScript that includes a string? So we can say if message dot includes at everyone, it's console.log the message. Else console.log. I'm ignoring this message, but logging it here to show the else statement works. We don't want to console.log the message. We want to say BN stupid courtroom fucking Romanian guy gif. So cool. All we need to do now is say, we need to say const message is a random element in our message array. And I'll go over this in detail in a second. So let's do that same thing again. Let's say how to get random element in array in JavaScript. I think I've actually Googled that before. It just came up. So, I'm still Googling that stuff all the time. Get a random item from a JavaScript array. Let's click this one. This solution looks like shit. There we go. Math.floor, math.random times item.length. That'll get me a random one. So it will get the floor of that. I'm going to copy paste that in because I'm allowed to copy paste shit. This is messages. And let's log up here. Let's say starting up my Discord bot. Okay, so let's run. We're starting up my Discord bot. So let's see what message we get. Oops, I did not type dot includes correctly. There. Why is that not working? Let's see. Console.log message. Now we're going to start. This is actually stuff we haven't really seen. Is me debugging something that's not working. So what I'll usually do is I'll just start logging stuff out near where I think the problem is. And I'll do this even in my real app. I'll just go close and I'll be like, put this word debug in front of it and then log the thing out so I can kind of watch for those I have a feeling this math.random thing didn't work. Oh, that only got me the index, so I'm stupid. So I need to actually access the element in the array there. I only got a random number. There we go. So we got, I'm ignoring this message, but logging here to show the else statement works. Hey, we got an add everyone. So now my bot's going to respond to it. Oh, he's ignoring the message here to show the else statement works. So we're not going to respond to that one. Did it again. He's ignoring the message. It's ignoring the message again. So we didn't get an add everyone. So we have a working bot. If we could plug this fucking thing into Discord, you know, get it to send the image. We could even have, I might make one that just says BN stupid courtroom fucking Romanian guy gif. That'd be great. Every time everyone says that, everyone, that just gets posted, that fucking slaps. Oh, see, we've responded to it a couple times. So all that is to say is we have this bot concept, but every bot should be able to run differently, right? Not every bot should run the same. And things need to run asynchronously. So where does the programming logic go? It goes in the callback. This is specific to our app, and it runs asynchronously through this interval. We're passing in a function to run. And we've done this before behind the scenes. You just haven't made one yourself. So there's a lot there. Promises, callbacks, all the homework will be about this stuff. I know it's going to be very confusing. Like I said, this is such a leap from, it always is for everyone too. It's such a leap from the previous stuff usually to go to the async stuff. And usually you hang on to it for a long time in terms of confusion. And, you know, to this day, I still have troubles with async programming a lot of the times because it's just the nature of things running different timings, right? Like to go back to my Bridge app, like I've had bugs with it before where I was like, oh my God, I didn't wait for the promise to resolve here. So the balance was always showing 0, even though the MetaMask connected. My balance didn't update because I didn't wait for the promise to resolve with .NET. It was literally a bug that I had. So I never, when the MetaMask resolved, nobody was waiting for it. It was just went dead. There had no callback passed in. So I'm going to write up a bunch of homework. I'm going to write up a glossary of where we are today that Mayo requested and Neil suggested as well, and put everything in it, including this. The homework will be about this. The next homework will be about this, and the Discord bot will use this kind of stuff quite a bit when we make it. And, you know, you guys have everything you need to make a Discord bot, and I think it'll be quite a fun project to do. But we need some exercises in this first. And so I totally understand that it's very confusing right now. There's no way to make this super easy, unfortunately, yet. Any questions?
What is pain?
Yeah, big time. Big time. The beauty of it is once you get the hang of this shit, yeah, you're essentially done learning basic JavaScript. And it's just going to be writing code. Asynchronous stuff is pretty much the end of our JavaScript rabbit hole for a long time, which is why we're going to be done JavaScript after it and just start using it more. We're not going to really be learning too much. Just doing more and more of what we've been doing and applying it to more logical situations and actually making apps. So like when we come back from the holidays, you know, we'll have a working Discord bot already, each of us, and this Discord will be a fucking nightmare. But, you know, we'll also start making web apps and learn HTML, which is really easy. And we'll start plugging in a lot of these event handlers and asynchronous stuff to our pages and getting them running. And we'll make like a page to display the pandas and stuff like that. And you guys will see it in action. If no one else has any other comments or anything, I will pause the stream and then have a smoke and then record